Well, welcome everyone. We have a nice little intimate group today. We're going to do some things on the first, second, and third noble truth today. And if you don't have a background with that, that'll be new. If you have a background, it will be a different new, a refresher. So Mark's going to lead us in something at the beginning.
So let's invite everybody just to have a soft, gentle gaze. Don't close your eyes. Just soft, gentle gaze. I find looking about 3 feet in front of me on the floor helps. And just noticing your breath. Noticing your shoulders. Noticing just how you feel. Without command or demand on your body, just noticing. And while you're noticing, I'm going to ask you to be aware of your right hand. If your hands are interlaced, I'm asking you to unlace them. And because we're going to be doing something with the right hand today. The right hand is about expression, about giving and offering, and so that's why we're going with that hand. But for now, it's just quiet breath. Quiet breath. Quiet breath. Sensation of the body. Awareness. If you feel better with your eyes closed now, let your body close. The soft, gentle sounds that are behind us. It's like whoosh of the fans. The ease of the sound up. Notice how you feel. What this feels like to you. Letting your breath go longer. Exhale longer. And if you're feeling a little daring, let the breath, the exhale, be longer than the inhale. We'll do a few rounds of that. Staying with your breath. In a few moments, I'm going to ask you to make a fist with your right hand. And when you make it, you're going to make it snug enough that you've got a reaction, that you can actually feel the fist. Not so much that it hurts, but just that you can feel it. And when you're ready, you can do that now. Just tighten your right hand as tight as you care to do it, that you've got a sensation. It's not hurting. But you can feel it. You can feel it in your forearm. Maybe you even feel it up near where the top of your arm is meeting your shoulder. You might even feel it right into your shoulder. Just noticing that sensation. Notice how you feel in this sensation. And while you're holding that fist, observe your thoughts. I'll be asking you to notice your hand. And the phrase that we often hear in this sensation is called letting go. And letting go is just opening your hand and letting it relax. And you can let go now. And just let your hand go. And notice the sensation in your hand. You still feel the sensation in your arm, in your shoulder, in your hand. Even though you've let go, there's this lasting impression of gripping and holding. Notice your thoughts as you experience this. Loving and kind. Give that right hand a little shake. Let it just shake out any tensions or any residual until it feels comfortable. And once again, let your hand rest and notice the difference in your hand. Notice the difference in the sensations and your thoughts. Sit quietly for a minute or so longer before coming back. In and soft exhalation. One more time, deep breath in and soft exhalation out. And the third and last time, deep breath in and soft exhalation out.
Perfect to lead into the talk about the noble truths. When you tightened your grip, there was tension and preoccupation with how that felt. At least for me. I wonder if that was your experience as well. And to use how Mark talked about that, the Dharma and meeting together like this and considering the principles of Buddhism is the shaking off of that tension. Still available to find again, and yet the shaking off of the tension to the point where we can be relaxed, we can be calm no matter what happens around us. I was torturing myself last night by watching the State of the Union address from the United States.
Why would you do that?
Well, because I thought it was a torture that I could maybe handle last night. So I watched, and there was so much tension, so much competition, so much I'm right, you're wrong stuff going on, kind of everywhere. So I'm not pinpointing a side here by saying that. And I watched how Joe Biden handled that, and he fueled the competition at any number of times. And then he shook it off a few times, which to me were the highlights of the night. He poked the bear. Let's see, as he was there, it was the left side of the room, who were not standing up for any of his applause, and no applause, no response, a few here and there. And he would poke the bear, and then he would joke with them. He played with them as there was dialogue happening. I enjoyed that. Not the whole process of that, but I enjoyed that he was calling something that he thought was right, but he wasn't disowning them. He was dialoguing. Those were the moments of attempted dialogue by a man who, when he was in Congress, was very bipartisan in how he worked on things. I am not promoting Joe Biden by saying this, but I was watching that, observing it. Mark talked some last week about being a good observer and not being trapped by it, and I was trying to do that as best as I could. Of course, there's trappings along the way. But it made me again think about our topic today. That if you want to live a life that is not competitive, that is cooperative, that is cognizant of the whole, as well as your individual journey in the whole. If that's a goal that you have, you can do it. And the Buddha, when he gave this first talk after his enlightenment, of which forms the basis of all Buddhist groups. This is the one thing. This is not dogma, but this is like foundational. So you can be a Tibetan Buddhist, a Western Buddhist, a Zen Buddhist, an Indonesian Buddhist, any form, Mahayana, Vajrayana, you can be any of those things. This is the one thing that stays the same. This is the foundational truth, which was his very first talk after his enlightenment, and that's why for centuries, through oral tradition, this was continued on, what he had said there. And the rest of it evolved and developed like a house on top of a strong foundation, each with their own flavor of how you build a house, but the same foundation. And we talked about that a couple of weeks ago when I said that that Buddhism is about one road but many paths on the road. And so the really interesting thing that's so different about Buddhism and what it offers you is it's inclusive. It's not exclusive. It takes you where you are, and the reality presents that in front of you. And then, when you get to the third noble truth, it says, what will you do about that? So I want to highlight these because it's been quite a while here at this Dharma group since we've done the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, which I think that will be my part of this journey. And if anybody else who's getting talks wants to come along on that journey, happy to share it. This foundational stuff is foundational for the lifestyle and philosophy of Buddhism, no matter where you are. But it is really, really modern. It's surprisingly modern for being how old it is. It's so relevant because we play the same suffering and dis-ease over and over. Just a different picture frame, a different way of doing that. And so it's relevant. I thought about this and the talk today as I watched last night. I think about that. When I think about these truths when I struggle at home, or struggle with myself, or have a day where there's a lot of tension in my air, or somebody else has a lot of tension in my air, or the whole world seems to be spinning counterclockwise, counterproductive. And so this stuff is really about how to find calm in the storm, is it not? So I'm going to highlight these again. I can do these pretty much from memory now, but 8 years ago I didn't even know what they were. So it's just an 8-year journey, with this stuff. I did know what they were, but in a different format. As I've said before, I think that Jesus' best sermon, Matthew 5 through 7, is right on track with what we're going to talk about today. So the first noble truth. The illness that we all have. Life includes suffering. The word that they used was dukkha. This is dukkha. We are not at ease with our lives. Interestingly, the Buddhists say you start at ease, and then somehow you're affected and infected. That's kind of a mystery, but each of us have our own journey with that. But we're not comfortable. There's stress. There's dissatisfaction. Even in some of our best moments. We always think of, traditionally in the West, one of the best moments is supposed to be like your wedding day. You ever watch those Bridezilla shows? Even on what's supposed to be just like a perfect day, I don't know, you all had wedding days, they're never perfect. And so even on some of these great moments, we're stuck with our mental formation that is like, something's not quite right. Even though so much is right, there's still something that's not quite right. Do you feel that way about life? There's just something off. Something not to our liking. Something uncomfortable. And the Buddha started there because the historical background of the Buddha was that he was sheltered by a wealthy family. And then 20 years old, I'm not exactly sure, anybody know what age it was? Around 20, I think it was. 26. Okay. Around that time, all of a sudden, he made it out into the world, and he walked out in the world, and he was shocked at what he saw. Because he saw suffering all around. And he lived a pretty sheltered life. I'm sure he felt the dis-ease if he really observed, even in the palace or in his comfortable surroundings. You ever been to a really perfect place and not felt quite at home? I always don't feel quite at home in a perfect place. And a friend in high school whose mother, they had a perfect house and it was all white, which made me super nervous. And I would go over there, and every time I would spill something. One time I played the piano at their beautiful white piano so animatedly that the vase broke and water poured all over the piano. And the mother came out, she stayed in the kitchen while the kids were out there, and then she's like, oh, 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 oh! I still remember going, oh, what is wrong with you, Jeff? You did somewhere perfect and you make a mess of it. And I wasn't invited many times. And the mother's like, you can invite all your friends, just not that one guy. And those things. And that's kind of a picture, I haven't thought about that for a long time, but that's kind of a picture of life. There's something so beautiful. It's a wonderful world, like the song. It is. And yet there's something about that as we live, we suffer. We're uncomfortable. We have expectations that are not met. If it only went just our way, it would all be better. That noble truth is really kind of a negative start, but thank God it doesn't stay there. In a dualistic world, not from our nature, our Buddha nature, from our original nature, but from our responses to life's circumstances. This is where suffering comes. I really like that. That's the first time I've been able to say that clearly. Not from our nature, but from our responses to our circumstances, our mental formations, our emotional responses, our reactivity, our creating little or big dramas. It's out of that our illness continues. And the Buddha said this is everybody's illness. Nobody's excluded or exempt from it. This is ordinary life. Second, what are the causes of this illness that we all have? This ordinary experience of being dissatisfied. This is all in the realm of that pain is inevitable, but what causes it is the second noble truth. The illness, suffering. The cause of suffering, the second one, are due to attachment. So said the Buddha. That's really simple. But when you start to flesh that out, it's complicated. Our problem with suffering is that we attach. Our ordinary experience is that we attach to things, and from that comes desire, expectation, hunger, and then the five that the Buddha said are leading things that we crave, we grasp, we cling, we live ignorant at times, and we live delusional at times. It's a pretty heavy-duty list. I'm going to start with an order that makes more sense to me today. I'm going to start with craving. Craving is being thirsty for something. Aspiring to a situation, an object, a person that we have not yet received. We crave something we don't have, but that we would like. We're thirsty for it. I was thirsty to have children, so I got married. Suffering all around with that equation. But those of you who are parents in the room, suffering involved in this. In the birth process, in the pre-birth process, in the afterbirth process, in the elementary school years, in the teenage years, in the young adult years, in the adult years. Suffering for you. Why do we do it? Well, there's a flip side to the coin. It's not all suffering. There's love. Probably unconditional love in a way that you might not experience in any other form. You know this, Teresa, right? By all the kids that you raised. Without having done that, you would not know what the full, it probably defines unconditional love for you.
But it's so broken.
Yeah. And you gave them love.
But we got no back.
You got love back, and let's just play the other side of the coin. You got suffering.
Yes.
Both coins, both sides of that coin were there for you. They suffered, you suffered, and yet there was love that fueled it. This craving for something is the opposite of accepting impermanence. When we crave something, we want it, and we want it for ourselves. And that craving is ordinary, it's normal, it's everywhere, and it leads to suffering. Suffering is an element of it. Grasping, second one. This is when we reach for something and hold it. We grasp for it and we want it in our hands. Natalie, who's not here today, Michael, you heard her story? No, the story from yesterday?
I just heard it this morning.
I did too. I saw her at the bank, and somebody decided that they wanted to grasp for some of stuff at her house.
At Natalie's?
Yeah, Natalie. So she'd broken into, and those things. So she's not here, and she was dealing with that this morning when I saw her. So somebody else grasped, and it's painful, and there's suffering involved because she's like, this is my territory. You don't belong here. I'm not pinpointing it wrong. This is the normal human experience of this. And therefore there's suffering involved because somebody else wanted it now. This kind of grasping for things is normal, and yet the grasping for things, instead of allowing them, is making them yours, rather than allowing it to be your gift. It's kind of like this versus this. You hold it because at this moment it's yours. But as Mark illustrated this morning, you don't clench your fist around it. That's grasping. And then the third one, clinging. The opposite of loosening your grip. Clinging is attachment. Holding on to an object, a person, a circumstance that we have in our home. This is the one that feels, those of us who have so many things in our palms, have the privilege of having so many things and people and circumstances, this is the one that seems to have a lot of problems with. We cling to it, it's ours. It will always be ours. That is our family's. This is mine. It's not yours. This clinging to things means that we have a tight grip because we don't want anybody to pry it away. And also, the very interesting thing is, it doesn't work. If you hold on to something too tightly, what happens? It runs away. It diminishes. Something happens, and we have held on to it too tight, and therefore it needs to run from us. Some of those posters, some of those pop psychology posters that are, you love something, set it free, and if it comes back to you, whatever. I can't quite quote it. We all know those things. But there's some truth that this is about relinquishing attachment. We have it for now. Those of you who struggle with health issues, or family, or friends who struggle, or spouses who struggle with health issues. You have your health when you have it. You don't have your health when you don't have it. The harder you try to control it, probably the more the dis-ease comes in. You live a tense life, they say, 5 to 7 years less on the back end. So this craving for things that we don't have yet, grasping onto things that we have just received, and clinging to things that are in our that we own, or we think we own already. These all cause suffering. Those three really go hand in hand with each other. It's just kind of a progression with those. The last two are also, interestingly, very related, and sometimes in studying this, it's hard to know which is which. Ignorance and delusion. Ignorance, the fourth of the causes of illness, is that we think we know something, but we're mistaken. Ignorance is not being conscious of life as it is. Delusion, I'm going to go to that one because it feels a little more unconscious to me. Delusion, the opposite of being clear about things, is a distorted way of looking at ourselves, others, and the world. So ignorance is something that we think we know something and we probably are not quite right. And delusion is that we don't have the right eyeglasses for seeing ourselves, others, and the world as a whole. These, I think, the history of humankind is full of this ignorance and delusion. What is this about that we're here? We'll still ask you the question. Is it to reach the top of the pyramid? Is it to be comfortable? What is it? And in our ignorance, the Buddha turns us back to circles. Things start pure. We become infected and affected. And then there's a point of the beginning of change, where we start to see this differently. But it's a journey, and then the circle. I always go back to the age circle that the East teaches us for those of us in the West. The beginning third of life is about developing. The second third of life is about producing. The third period of life is about wisdom and giving back. Kind of same true with the 12 steps, right? 11 steps. You're working on reorienting yourself from your addiction. And then the 12th step just does exactly what the Buddha talked about, and that is, now it's your time to serve. What you know is meant to be given. It's not meant to be held. It's not meant to be just yours. It's meant to be others and the world's. You can change the world, so thought the Buddha. And it starts by changing you. and changing your mind. But then it evolves from there in these circles. I'm forever thinking about circles now that I've been in touch with Buddhism. Does this make sense so far? Okay. The third noble truth. So if the first one is that life includes discomfort, dis-ease, suffering, and the second one, here's the causes of why we suffer. That is not enough. Imagine if you went to a doctor and they told you what your disease was and how you got it. They said, well, we'll see you. That would be pretty disheartening. And so if this is indeed like a doctoral, a medical treatment, the third noble truth is it. You want to get beyond ordinary life? You want something extraordinary in your life? Detach. Isn't it weird how simple that is, and when you think about it, how difficult that is? Our problem is attachment. Our solution is detachment. You want to live an extraordinary life? Detach. You want to really make a difference? Don't care the way you used to care. Care in a different way. The cessation of suffering is through detachment, which returns you to your original self. If you detach from the dis-ease, if you detach from the causes of your dis-ease, you can attach back to your original nature, which is beautiful, pure, clear. Loosen your grip is the process, as Mark led us in today. Let go. Get off the hamster wheel. Stop looking for satisfaction in external sources. Find satisfaction from your internal resources that are not connected to suffering. That's how to be extraordinary. It also sets you free to know what your gifts are and then to offer them. I think we're all here because we're all gifted. And so we have to get past our attachments to detachment so that we can find our gifts and freely give them with no expectation of what we would get in return. This is truly the kind of love that's at the heart of creation, unconditional love. This is possible to do. Buddha thought so. He achieved it. Took a lot of years under the Bodhi tree. Took a lot of meditation, and he continued on the journey. But I think those early years of coming to his enlightenment led him to the point where the rest of his life was about giving back. I'd love to go into all the things that detachment is, and maybe I will do that next time. But I have a list, a short list, of what this kind of letting go, extraordinary living might look like. List of letting goes. Here's 10. Letting go of past hurts. They do you no current good. Release them. You might have to face them and then release them. It's part of therapy sometimes. You might have to observe them and become aware of them so that you know how powerful they currently are, so that you can put them aside, but to let go past hurts. They're only weighing you down. The people who have hurt you might not even be thinking about you. Isn't that the amazing thing? They might not be as preoccupied with you as you are about them. Letting go of control. This is that going, not fighting the stream of life, but floating with the stream of life skillfully. Letting go of ego. I have to be the one. I have to be right. Therefore, you must have to be wrong. That dualism, to let go of that, is to live in a much more cooperative world. Let go of expectations. This is a hard one. What we expect of life. What we expect of you. What we expect of me. Let go of those expectations and you will start to feel the flow of life. That is your original intent. Letting go of the need to manipulate relationships. How about that one? Let them be. Let them be what they are. I could say so much about that area. I'm going to just leave it there. Let go of the need to manipulate and control relationships. Let go of your past mistakes. Did you make some? Are you making some? Will you make some? Let go of it. Those, again, are weights that once you face them, you can, once you split them up, just get on with mopping it up. Simple. Let go of attachments. Let them be what they are. Don't hold them so tightly. Loosen your grip. Let go of resentments. And the last one that I did, and there's probably a list of 100, number 10. Let go of the tendency to want to label things. This is a little bit more difficult for men often. Anybody who's at therapy with me, they got to hear this thing about the difference between men and women in a chest of drawers illustration. Men are like a chest of drawers with many drawers. Pull one out, push one in. Pull one out, push one in. Women are the same size, just one big drawer with everything mingled in it. That's our gifts to each other as opposite genders. So to resist labeling is to say, so that's what you are. That's how you process it. That's how you see it. That's how your lifestyle's affected. I think men and women would get a lot better if they understood the beautiful complexity of men. Both directions. And the understanding that comes from it. A lot of let goes. So to review, and then let's talk. It's nice we have a small group because we can talk a little bit more in a small group. The first noble truth realistically says it's the ordinary experience that we suffer. We're uncomfortable, we're at this ease of life. Two, that there's a cause of this, and the cause is attachment. clinging, grasping, craving, ignorance, delusion. The third noble truth is the cure for the disease. And the cure is detachment. Loosening your grip. Letting go. Letting it be. If you want to live an extraordinary life, let things be what they are. Thoughts. That's all I got. But Buddha really nailed it with this stuff, I have to say. Right? It's that name Buddha. Why doesn't he have Christmas? That's completely different.
Or some kind of holiday.
Jesus kind of nailed it though. When please, I encourage you, dig out a Bible somewhere if you have one, or read Matthew 5-7 and see if it's not the same thing. It's about how to live extraordinarily, not ordinarily. And it's about letting things be as they are.
There's one of the things when we're doing the meditation about when you're holding your hand and you hold it tight, and there's some suggested things in it. The first thing is you weren't doing it naturally. Somebody got you to do it. You did it to yourself for the suggestion of somebody else. And then when you let go, you've let go of it. You don't have that sensation anymore, but you still have the memory of it. And one of the things about the third noble truth is the letting go is actually quite easy because it's instinctual. You want to do it right away. But the sensation is still there. The memory, the lasting memory of it. And that's where stepping away on the third part gets more interesting, because even though you've done all the practice, you've done everything that you're supposed to do, it's still there with you, reminding you of what was, and that's the story of the past. And that's one of the hardest things to walk away with the third.
You know, Mark, with that idea, we will never lose the memory of it. We can even think now what that felt like 30 minutes ago. We don't lose the memory. It's just that we don't energize it anymore because we have moved past that. We don't energize it. We're not stuck there. We don't take the detour off of the current road.
And don't you think that's the challenge that people have? Is that if they want to get over, let go of the painful memory, then they feel like they can't revisit it. You know, it's which is wrong, which is not the intent, right? The intent is to still be able to have the memory. It's just detaching the emotion from it, and that's where I think people have a hard time.
You do, absolutely. And when you let go of something, what you retain might be positive. I'm glad for what I learned by being married those 7 years. I didn't like the 7 years. I didn't like the ending. I still have those memories, but they are disempowered now. And now that I've disempowered them, I've gone down that detour anymore. Now, I can live in the goodness of what that was, what it was at that point in my life, and let that build. It was foundational. It's the very first house I owned. It was the very first family I formed. Very first real act of independence. All these things were great things. And my kids got a really good mother. Awesome. Now I can hold on to those things and not have to visit the detour of the things I had to let go of to get.
There's a danger of holding on too tightly, though, which is the flip side of letting go of some of the bad memories. Is clinging to the good ones.
It could be. It could be. I try to do that in a fairly detached manner.
Yeah.
So, but you can overattach and think, oh my God, what? I wish I had that back. And that's also not good for you.
Right.
Yeah. Somebody else thoughts as you,
Yeah. As I'm listening to you talk, in my mind, I kind of separate 1 and 2 noble truths from 3 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, there's a little something in between. But it's in it. You say it in between, actually, which is the delusion and the ignorance. And it goes so well with the meditation of your hand. And I've talked about it before because this is all a great definition. Defining. Yeah, we all know we need to let go, blah, 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 so on and so forth. But what's the tool? Like, make it practical. How do you do that? Especially if you don't even know that you're clinging. So if you have the hand, what I've talked about in my meditations is go to that place in your body where you feel your gut instinct, where you know something is telling you to do something or not to do something. Allow the fist to connect to that. And you have to sit there for just a moment. It doesn't have to be this 20-minute meditation. You can do it while you're walking, you can do it while you're doing the dishes, as Thich Nhat Hanh and everyone else has taught us. You can do it any time of day. But if that's your touchstone, clench your fist. Don't forget to feel your gut. Because that will tell you where your delusion is. You'll feel it. The body knows. And so,
don't you think that when you talk about gut, I really relate that in this talk to the idea of Buddha nature. That's your core. That's the clarity. There's the clarity. However you see that,
Yes. But also, I mean, it's not in the same. I don't want to say it's in the same place in everyone's body. But for me, that's where I feel my discomfort the most. Actually, is my gut feeling.
Okay.
Why? Because I forget my Buddha nature. My Buddha nature is in my heart. So my heart's as clear as crystal, and I forget that because my gut is a cloud of delusion.
Okay.
And I get into that ego, like you're talking about, like I'm really separate from you or separate from that person, and there is such a thing as right and wrong. I forget that unless I go in and feel like, oh, I know it better now. Because I've had practice kind of like thinking about it. And for me, it's usually the second something shitty comes out of my mouth. That is my fist. So, and that's my gut. And that's where my awakening happens. From delusion to recognizing the clinging. And then remembering the Buddha nature, which for me is in the heart. So it's kind of like a chain reaction. But it took practice, and the fist is a great tool to initiate that chain reaction. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, you're physically owning what your journey is.
Yeah.
I get that.
Because you can't go to number 3 without. I mean, it's a working process. You have 1,000 things happening in one lifetime. But that delusion, you really got to cut it with something.
Absolutely. I think I also, when you divide the first and second noble truth and the third and fourth, I really kind of see this is the turning point. This is the reality, and here now it's asking you to turn down a different road. At that point, and that pivot there is crucial, and I think that's why I want to 2 weeks from now do detached involvement. I think there's some tools by which you make the pivot, and a way of thinking and revising your thinking and processing by which you do that. I've done this 3 other times, but it's also been a long time since I've done that, about 14 months. I looked it up. So that's the pivot between the second and the third noble truth. I appreciate you saying that. Also, bringing the body into it, I think, is, and an awareness of that, I think is really great.
Thanks for the talk.
Somebody else.
I got one.
Bill.
It seems like there's a time when people figure this out on their own, and it's when they're being given a death sentence. They've got 1 year to live. So there's a book by Stephen Levine called 1 Year to Live, and there's subsequent workshops that you can participate in. And the goal is, because when people have 1 year to live, they self detach, they let go. They can't help it, right? The end is so close that they just do it automatically. But the goal of that book and the goal of the workshops, and this feels like this fits right into that, is to figure that out while you're living your life.
Yeah. Why not earlier?
Yeah, why not earlier? Exactly. I think Richard Rohr was famous for saying too, like, aging is enlightenment at gunpoint, which feels to fit in as well, right? It's like, and eventually when you're given the death sentence, you get your shit together from a self sort of detached, or not. My sister's a chaplain, so she, sits with people that are dying, and she's been through a tremendous amount of, board certification level training, and so she's learned a tremendous amount about dying. She's done a lot of Buddhist work too. So anyway, they just seem to fit in there.
Yeah, I mean, you can learn it from a Dharma group, or you can learn it from life. It's all waiting for you to find.
Mm-hmm.
It's there, and it's not it's not in a religious system. It's in that idea of attachment and detachment.
Yeah.
I told my dad, I joke with him about the end of life. He's 88, and he can joke. He can joke about it. And nobody else in my family can, just me and him. And I said, I know you're not going to have a grave, but I wish you did, because I know what I write on it. And he's like, what would that be? And I'm like, he worked. He goes, that's right. He worked from 7 to 83 in formal jobs.
Yeah.
So a lot of years of work. And he defined himself by his work and those things. So just this last 5 years has been about detaching from that and trying to find himself. We've had some interesting conversations about heaven. They go to a church, and so my mom thinks there is a heaven, my dad thinks there's not. Interesting, they're sitting in the same church, thinking different things. We've had a lot of conversations, about that. He never would have had those conversations except for this reinvention at the end of his life. I said to him, you have one more reinvention, and that's that you get calm with yourself.
Yeah.
For the end, I'm calm with you. You can go anytime. It's okay with me. But if you want to know, for you, this is your journey with, and I don't say this is your journey back to your Buddha nature. Instead of just
He's not ready for that.
No. I try to couch it in terms that he's going to do, but I think so many things we attach to that are artificial. It might be a piece of our life, but we attach a strong attachment to it, and to detach from that, we missed out on him in growing up because he was so attached to her. Therefore, he was detached from us. But when I released that expectation, all of a sudden, what was available currently is available, and that's part of the enlightenment.
There's an interesting comment to what I was saying, that some people know someone who's gone all the way to their deathbed and not done that. And that must be just tremendous suffering up till the very end. They must just be fighting with themselves, because I think the inherent nature is to start to let go. I mean, if you're holding on to it that strongly all the way to the very end, man, it's rough.
Somebody else, and we have a few more minutes. Thank you.
Tying back to what Brad has talked about lately, about I'm not angry, I'm experiencing anger, I'm not sad, I'm experiencing sadness. And it might just be semantics, but how we define things and how we state things is sort of how we understand them, and they become reality for us. So maybe there isn't suffering in the world. We just perceive the world wrong, and the suffering is within us. So we can cure our suffering through enlightenment, but we sure as shit can't change the world. We have no power over anything outside of ourselves. And the enlightened people, I believe, fully encompass the world and take it in and deal with it and work with it. So if there was suffering out there, then they would be taking suffering in and they would be experiencing suffering. But it's my understanding that enlightened people don't actually experience suffering. So maybe if we just...
They don't attach to the circumstances by
Right.
which they're used to suffering.
In this board right here, the first truth is the truth of suffering. It doesn't say that there's suffering in the world, but frequently it gets said that way.
I say it that way.
But we perceive the world with suffering. Might be a better way to say it, because it doesn't put the fault on the world for having suffering in it. We have suffering within us.
There's a teaching from one of the lineages that I follow, and it talks about what is beautiful. And it says that you can see all that is beautiful in the world because the beauty exists inside of you. And because the beauty exists inside of you, you can see everything that is beautiful. And I think that's parallel in kind of what you're saying. If you choose to see the suffering, if you choose to see the hardship, then you're enduring something inside. And by making peace with that, you transform that suffering within so that you see the beautiful in the world representing the beautiful inside of you as well.
Well, I would say that the world doesn't have the suffering. We just see it wrong. We see beauty and misunderstand it and think it's suffering.
The Buddha regularly said it's about, the problem is with our mental formations. So to look at the different, that's a really good challenge about the linguistics of this.
I don't know if I buy it. I'm just throwing it out there.
That's okay.
But,
Kind
it's
of
a
blew my
logical
mind
argument.
when you said that.
It's valid. I don't know if it's true.
Yeah. Well, you put it out there, and we can each discern whether that is true in the way that we might want to look at it.
Sure.
Anyone else? Do you see how foundational this is? These teachings, and of course, the fourth noble truth is there is a path, a specific path by which you work with, and that how you guide your ship through waters that are through storms. In life is the eightfold path, and so that then they get more specific. I really want to be specific though. 2 weeks from now, about a 4-step process that I present about how you operate in a detached manner, but are connected in the present moment. If you're not floating above life, you are involved in the middle of life in a detached manner. So it's tricky. It's tricky again on linguistics. A web of linguistics about how our Western mind forms these things and how our mind forms around it.
And I like this comment about the heart and where it is in our body and how we feel it. My understanding is that we got trained and so manipulated that see everything with our head, and they can prove it. Heart surgeon can really prove it. All our hearts are suffering, and here we are again. And when it suffers, we just put a new one in, and this is not what was meant to be. So now, for me, the teaching of all this is let my head cut my head off and run around without my head. How this feels. No, I still can touch, I still can do many things, and my heart will guide me, and is will. But we have to open it. We have to really open this chest and say, I'm not afraid, I'm not fearful, I give back what I learned, and all this. And it's relatively easy when you recognize with your heart what you're doing to yourself first, and this is when people die. I studied a lot of this, what you just mentioned a little bit, and in the last moment, this, oh my goodness, what I have done with my life. It's sometimes really on the way out, the soul gives you this last little push, and and say, when you come back already, you learned your lesson. And my understanding is we are here to experience all this. We are not coming here to live like queens and kings and where we learn the lessons when not on this planet. And but it's got so far away, and even lovely Buddha, he had all this teaching, and more people learning it now and living by what is really beautiful. But unfortunately, in all this 100 years ago, people got away, and now we have to put the people back. And all this what we discussed is so true. But from some people it is too much, because they are so occupied with their head. I mean, we have the time here. We are so lucky that we can meet here each Friday and have the time. We live in New York or in Calgary or God knows where in Berlin. People just running around and making this life just little bit. So this moment for me, I always say, are so precious, because not many people right now in this world have the time to sit here for 2 hours and go inside and see and talk about the subjects. They talk about the stock market and this. But what is really, really important, what we're discussing here. And I want to say that I'm really grateful that I'm part of this circle. I'm looking really forward to it. So the whole week I'm thinking about it and reflecting what is said. Honestly, I'm not like many of you and know all this. I'm just starting to go in this line. And
why do you think we go back to the basics?
Right.
We go back to the basics because, first of all, the basics, some people don't know what these basics are.
Right.
And second of all, those of us who have gone through the basics, every time there's something new available, because we've changed, and now we're looking at it from a new perspective. And we're refining our experience. Good, thank you. We're happy you're here too. Anybody else, or should we do loving kindness meditation? Okay, let's do that. Anybody want to lead the loving kindness meditation that you know it? I'm happy to do my version. I'm also happy to have somebody else lead this. Okay.
Okay. I like your version.
Okay, yeah. Mine, I think when Ruthie has done this, it's much more of a traditional loving kindness, but she did say early on when we were doing loving kindness meditations, make this your own meditation. And so I took that as my homework and went home and wrote down the 8 core things that my instinct was telling me were crucial for me. And that's these qualities that are in this loving kindness meditation that I send that to myself and to others and to the world. So, get yourself comfortable. Follow your breath for about 30 seconds and then we'll start. So the first person is you, myself. Send this to yourself. I wish you well and health. I wish you peace inside and out. I wish you honesty and integrity. I wish you happiness and love. Now you move out from yourself to someone that you love, who loves you. That it's going well, and we send them those same 8 energies. to that person, look them in the eye. I wish you well and health. I wish you peace inside and out. I wish you honesty and integrity. I wish you happiness and love. Leave them behind and go to the next neutral person. Someone you might know who they are, but you don't really know them well. Picture them, someone neutral. I wish you well and health. I wish you peace inside and out. I wish you honesty and integrity. I wish you happiness and love. So bring someone to mind that you're having difficulty with or has difficulty with you. And in this same eightfold way, wish them the exact same things that you wished yourself, someone you love, a neutral person, to a person that is not going so well with you and them. Send these same things to them. I wish you well and health. I wish you peace inside and out. I wish you honesty and integrity. I wish you happiness and love. Leaving them kindly. We now go to the whole world. To all things that live and breathe. All creatures, great and small. To the whole world, I wish you well and health. I wish you peace inside and out. I wish you honesty and integrity. I wish you happiness and love. Breathe in, breathe out. Relax, detach. Let that loving kindness not only be a part of what we just did, but let that be a part of you as you go from there. So, because Ruthie is always here in spirit, we're going to end with the way that she has always ended this group, with each, I think it's Unitarian. It's right up here. If you're going to get the sign right. Whoa, ouch. Let's say this together.
Go in peace. Go making peace. Living gently. Loving mightily. And bowing to the mysteries.
Peace. us a little thing, Suzanne?